Review! And we're back. Back with another, talk about the sinking ship that is The Last of Us. Fucking hell.
I'm still drinking coffee. Because I still apparently need it when making videos like this, fucking hell. Alright, but my notes are, again, very, very long as well.
Hopping over to episode 3, it's nice to see Tommy mourn Joel. I mean, that's just a very nice touch.
For some reason, they just didn't want to show that in the game, which is, interesting choice. So it's nice that we at least get that moment, and Neo, of course, saying "give my best to Sarah" or "say hi to Sarah" or something like that, which shows a lot of like the relationship in between them as brothers, right? Then seeing like the aftermath about the whole raid on Jackson, then a bunch of people in the hospital back and forth that have gotten caught stray bullets and just been fucked up from the debris from the whole battle. And of course, then Ellie is in the hospital bed and she is reliving the memory of Abby stabbing Joel over there. And I still think Bella Ramsey puts in a fantastic portrayal as Ellie. I think she's doing a good job. I heard a lot of discourse around episode 2 that they didn't feel like Ellie was really selling it that much. And of course a lot of people were doing comparisons to Ellie from the games and her portrayal over there. Of course, if it is that we're comparing it, I do think that Ellie's actress from the games does do a better job than Bella Ramsey, but they're making it out like Bella Ramsey's doing a bad job, which I still really, really don't agree with and frankly don't fully understand even, but that's the whole thing. So of course Ellie gets visited by Gale in the hospital, which, makes sense. We've established that there is like a town psychologist, and it would make sense that Ellie would need to talk about her after everything that happened, right? I can't help but feel that Ellie's just acting quite immature and childish in a lot of these scenes, which is something that's quite frustrating to me because, of course, with everything that she went through in the first game, we could see her growing up very fast through all the experiences that she had over there, and it feels a little bit silly how she's mocking the idea of getting psychological help after traumatic events, and I don't know, in general, she's just acting in a way that's a little bit, like, annoying to look at. I actually like more or less all the scenes that we get with Tommy. I like that we get to see him more. The death of Joel at one point is like one of those moments that I feel like is quite key for us to get as a story, and they decided in the game that it wasn't necessary, which I think is fucking ridiculous, but that's the way it is, I guess. And I also love the dialogue that we get after Dina has told Ellie all the information about Abby's crew. The dialogue that we get in between Ellie and Tommy I like a lot, both in the way that he counters the points that Ellie said, but also him also calling her out on just don't talk to me like I didn't know him. Ellie is also talking quite respectlessly towards Tommy in that instance, and I think we're just getting into a core issue that I'm having a lot with these episodes. It's that I'm not sure how much I like Ellie as a character anymore. In these past 4 episodes that we've had right now, she has a lot of scenes and moments that make her feel very annoying. She was, of course, very childish and playful in the first game because of how naive and young she were, and with everything that they went through and how she got a bit more serious towards the end of the show, because it is, of course, it's quite hard to just go back to normal after something like that because it's a huge deal, right? And there's something about her playfulness in these episodes that I don't feel like I buy that she would still be this silly all the time. And here I feel like they could use the presence of Dina. That Dina can be a bit silly, goofier one, whilst Ellie is the bit more stern person. And you can get similar dynamics like you got in season 1 in between Joel and Ellie, just now that it's Ellie and Dina instead. But I don't know, there's something about their playfulness that it's entertaining to see, I guess, because I can definitely buy the friendship in between the two of them and that they have good chemistry with each other. There's just something about it that feels kind of out of place, and I don't know, it feels very forced watching the adventure in between these two in this whole story. I don't know, it doesn't feel earned in the same way. I think that's my issue of it. It doesn't feel as earned as we had with Joel and Ellie in the first season. We get the introduction of the Seraphites in 2 scenes, which was like, okay, like we just get this very expositional dialogue in between a dad and the daughter, and they're doing the whistles back and forth, and they're talking about like this savior character, or the savior person that the Seraphites is looking up to. That's about it. Then we get in episode 4, Jeffrey Wright's character Isaac is interrogating one of the Seraphites. That's kind of it. So it's like the introduction of them is a little bit like, alright then.
You can see a pattern in both episode 1 and 3.
There are moments where they try to justify and make it a bit more believable that Ellie is a physical threat. Like doing combat sports in episode 1 with Mountain Man over there. Then also doing like push-up and crunches in the hospital, and then boxing with Jessie when she gets out, and like they're trying a lot to make it very believable that Ellie has a physical presence. But regardless if you're fucking Floyd Mayweather or whatever, when it is that you are 5 foot nothing and you weigh like 30 kilograms, I'm just not sure that it's the same issue that I had in the episode 1. Like, Ellie had no right of ever physically overcoming someone like a dude of the size that we see in episode 1, and also a few moments in episode 4 that's a bit wonky. But I think also playing into the annoying factor where it is that Jessie is saying like, well, I can't discuss anything like this, and she's like, it's me, and she's saying something like, oh, is it because I'm stupid? And it's just like, oh, you're saying things that are just very annoying to listen to, and I kind of don't like it. I like Ellie so much from the first season, and I don't like what it is that they're doing with her over here. I find it so... I'm going through the same pain as I had with the second game. Again, why do I keep putting myself through this? Fuck, man. But it's like she's just growing increasingly annoying in all the episodes that are going, and oh man.
Now then, of course, we have the big meeting of the town and the council and everything, where they're going to discuss the idea of some of their strongest men going out to get revenge on Abby or track down this crew or whatever. I like that it becomes like a town meeting. Everyone in town is able to weigh in with different perspectives and stuff like that. With the first 3 episodes, they are very clearly showing how this town is working as a community, and they are very much, all big decisions are made as a group. It's very democratic in that way. Well, technically not democratic because the main council are the one who decides everything. We're communists. But I do think that it's very cool that we're really shown how much they try to take everyone's perspective into consideration, you know? But in the actual scene though, like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Ellie does give a good speech. I'll give that to her, but I don't see how anybody could ever be convinced of anything else that this is just a pure revenge trip. Even though they're bringing up okay arguments, I just don't see how anybody can ever land on the side that this is not just a very, very stupid decision to do. Now I know what some of you might be thinking.
Oh, Jonas actually lost the proposition, so it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, but I don't buy that 3 people on the council, which is most likely Tommy, Jesse, and someone else. I don't buy that those 2, or anyone in that room for that matter, thinks that this is a good idea. I'm not even sure that I buy that Ellie would want to do this. There's of course more ground to stand on by motivating why she would want to do this, but I'm not so sure that I buy that even she would be convinced that this is an okay idea. Like, yeah, I don't know. And I guess that kind of loops back into the dynamic in between Ellie and Dina as well, because when it is that they're going on their adventures together and they're like flirting around in tents and chatting about their previous kiss and whatever, it's not really selling the seriousness of the situation, if that makes sense. I mean, 2 small girls who sure can defend themselves but are still very, very vulnerable, trekking cross-country through very treacherous ground where there are countless of infected and mostly also enemy factions around and different kinds of, evil people all around. Like, the dynamic that they have in between them, I feel like it's not really selling the seriousness of the situation that we have. And I think that that's kind of my issue with this whole thing. When it is that we see some people being convinced that this might be a good idea, and Ellie and Dina not taking things as seriously when they're walking around, it's kind of giving me the sense that it's just like, well, is this serious not life-threatening every second of every minute, you know? Because I feel like it would be. But then also they end the episode 3 by reaching Seattle, which I find insane, by the way, because the thing is, when you look at the entirety of season 1, I did some checking on this, when you map out all the different locations they go in between, they travel a total distance of 4,000 kilometers, approximately, a little bit less, technically it's like 3.6, but around 4,000 kilometers. That's also included with that they went via car for a very substantial amount of that whole trek, right? Now, between Jackson, Wyoming and Seattle, it's around 1,500 kilometers, meaning that it's a little under half of the entire journey that they did in season 1, and they breezed through it in like 10-15 minutes of screen time. It does undermine it a little bit when it is that you just breeze through it that quickly, because like, it's a long distance. It would take days and even weeks to go on horse for that entire amount. And you would encounter so much more than just one group of dead Seraphites on the way. Now in episode 4, the first scene we have with the Federal group is some of the most generic military dude dialogue I've heard in years. The way that they're acting, the way that they're talking is so fucking... it's super silly. But then that whole scene kind of evolves with, for starters, we introduce Jeffrey Wright as Isaac, which, I'm gonna be honest, I barely remember Isaac's characters from the game because he was that dull, but I adore Jeffrey Wright, so I think it's going to be quite interesting to see his presence in the show going forward. And I mean, the one other significant scene we have with him I like quite a bit actually. But that whole encounter was very confusing to me, where we had obviously Fedra, and then they got encountered by another group, which I would assume that that's the WLF that Isaac maybe had gotten scouted by before and agreed to betray them. He also chose to bring one dude from that Fedra group back with. I don't know, the whole thing was very confusing to me, and it was a huge mindfuck when I was watching the scene as well, but I'm guessing that's gonna pay off later down the line, I don't know. We see them see a tank, and I think it's quite a neat moment that we see Ellie freak out and be like, that's a tank, oh my god, because she definitely would go and explore it. I probably would have done the same if I was in that situation. And I like as well that she opened the lid and it's super loud, and they are aware that it's like, shit, that was very, very loud, and they're like on their toes about it. It's good that they're at least establishing that they should still stay somewhat quiet in a situation like this. But then they go into the music shop, they find a guitar, and then we get the Take On Me cover, just like we got from the game as well. And I don't know, it feels very weird to me, to be honest.
I think it's mostly because
It feels so blatantly obvious how hard the writers are working for us finding them cute. It's like when I'm seeing a scene like this and the looks that they're having in between each other, it feels like Neil Druckmann and Craig Mason is grabbing me and going, see, they're super cute, see, they're so cute, see. And I don't know, it just feels very like, yeah, I don't know, it's a bit weird to me. Not taking any away from Dina's reaction, because I remember that as soon as Ellie's done playing, Dina's reaction and the first like 2 lines she says, her delivery over there, I was very, very impressed by. So she does fantastic acting wise in that scene, but the whole setup of it is a bit, yeah, a bit weird. And then we of course get Isaac torturing a Seraphite member. It's quite a cool scene. It's very brutal, it's very intense. I'm just wondering, for people who haven't played the games and are not familiar with these factions from before, like your brain is going to be scrambled eggs at this point by how many factions they try to introduce at the same time without necessarily giving them that much characterization in between. Like, I feel like they're not really doing that much of characterizing the different factions and their motivations and what it is that they're standing for in different ways. And it's just, I don't know, it's a little bit like, okay, disregarding the impact it has on the world building. Just that scene by itself, I think it's cool as hell. I'll give it that. Then of course they reach Seattle and they sneak into this headquarters that says WLF on top, and they start by seeing the hanging corpses with their intestines out, just like we saw in the game. And then they also get confronted with some WLF members who come in there, and oof, this is where the episode went drastically downhill for me. Until it went up later, but I'll get to that then. This confrontation feels very flimsy to me. For starters, Ellie managed to sneak out of sight up a metal stairway, which I feel like is not really something you would be able to do, especially when you're in a room where there's like,
it's a room the size of a classroom and there's guys with guns and flashlights shining all around. I don't see how they would be able to be out of sight whatsoever. But also when Ellie goes up the stairs, she tries to open the window, and I mean, I'm guessing she opened it just to check if she was able to get it open, but it's like, for a second it looks like she's about to abandon Dina, which was a little bit like, are you not gonna check that she's alright before you start doing stuff? But you know, yeah, it's not a big deal, but yeah, it's just a bit silly to me. Like, the one good moment that I like from it though is that we see a guard notice sounds from up there and scream to his teammates, stairs clear, as a way to try and bait them into moving around, thinking that they're in the clay, you know. It's always nice seeing people being smart like that, you know. But then his intelligence kind of goes out the window when he goes into a long corridor with his gun drawn and he doesn't check the corners. If it is that you're going around a corridor where there's wide open space to your right and you don't even peek around there, you don't check your corners, that's yeah, that's not even just police training, that's just, I mean, that's something that I would do. Yeah, that was silly. And here we also get introduced to the issue that we have in episode 1 as well, where Ellie tackles this guy and he flies down with his gun flying out of range, and she managed to get a grapple hold on him and keep him in a stranglehold, which is silly as hell. Like, come on. I get that she's combat trained and she trains a lot for being sneaky in a lot of different ways and being agile, you know, but
like, there's a certain extent that you can do this to. This dude is twice her size. He would be able to throw her off him quite easily. But of course she gets a grapple hold on him. Then she gets caught by another WLF member who is about to shoot her. But then Dina just spawns behind that guy. She just spawns out of nowhere. Like, if you think of the geography of the scene, they were like on 2 sides of the room. Ellie went up the metal stairs and then some dude followed her up there. Then one dude followed around the other side, on the other side of the corridor, and then Dina somehow got up right behind you without anybody noticing downstairs. So I don't know, like, the geography of the whole scene gets very weird, where we saw Dina first here and then she just appears behind this one guy saving Ellie's life, which I was a little bit like, alright. So then they shoot the window and go out, and the editing gets really, really broken here, because they shoot the window and Dina go out and Ellie is like just behind her. But Dina runs out. We stay on Ellie for half a second when she runs out. When she's out, Dina's already down on the ground. Like, she's just transported again down to the ground, and Ellie is then has to like fit herself into the hole and then start to slowly climb down. She reaches down in quite a few seconds, and that's also including that she fell half of the distance of that, but Dina just appeared downstairs, which, I mean, I guess they had to do it like that because it would be a bit awkward when there's dudes with guns 2 meters to your right, and you're standing there waiting for Dina to get through the hole, and you're just standing there waiting, you know, then the whole thing gets a bit wonky. They run away somewhere, they open a door, and there's something that's just caved in, so there's just rubble all over blocking the whole passage, except for a tunnel that goes underneath the whole rubble quite a long way, and that is also very conveniently just big enough to fit Ellie and Dina, but just narrow enough so that the other guys won't be able to follow them. And again, over here with the editing, they just poof out of existence, because they go into the tunnel, the guys come like a second after, and they're looking with the guns down the tunnel, and there's just no one over there. I feel like in reality they would have had 15 bullets up their arse at that point, but yeah, I guess that's how it goes. And lucky for Ellie and Dina, this tunnel conveniently leads through all the rubble all the way into the highway tunnel thingamajig. And here we get a moment that I like quite a bit, actually. We've gotten the setup from the first episode that Dina can listen and be able to identify how many infected there are. And that's set up from episode 1. The payoff of that here, because then when it is that the soldiers are approaching and they can hear that it's infected, then you can see Dina count, and she counts all the way up to 5, and then you can see that her face goes, okay, no, it keeps going. There's way more than 5. There's a lot of them over here. It was a very creative way to build tension in this encounter, and I like that it was, of course, set up in the previous episode as well. Now, the actual escape of the infected from Ellie and Dina is not very impressive to me. It feels very forced how it is that they're always just on the edge of being caught and they're shooting back and forth, and I don't know, I feel like in reality they wouldn't be able to hold them off for that long and then be just on the edge of escaping, but no, it is what it is. Then here we reach the moment where the episode got quite good for a little bit, actually. We get,
Of course, a story beat that we get in the game as well, but I personally think that it's done quite a bit better over here as well. So they go through those spinny doors thing. Dina gets caught, and one infected is just about to bite her, so then Ellie reaches forward her arm, so the infected bites her instead. And then they go through, and from here on out, the next couple of minutes is really impressive, because I feel like Dina is acting just in the way that you would do, that it's just like, of course, you're shocked about the whole thing because she thinks her friend just sacrificed herself and died for her, but they still have to get out at the same time. Yeah, I like that the show is spending so much time on focusing on, because of course there's all kinds of emotions and thoughts running through your head, and as soon as they get to safety, then she pulls a gun on Ellie, and then Ellie has to very calmly be like, let me explain, I know what you're thinking and this is gonna sound insane, but I'm actually not infected, I'm immune. The dialogue's excellent, and the performance and the directing and the editing is excellent in this moment, because of course Dina has to think about like, you're my best friend, I don't want you to turn, so I would need to shoot you before you turn for your own good, so that you actually don't experience the turning, but also for my own safety, that if you're infected then you need to go, I can't be with you. Those things, but then Ellie also has to be like, she's very pressed to make Dina understand that she's not in danger, but at the same time she can't push too much because there's of course a gun pointed at her, but she also has to explain it in a way where it's like, don't shoot, just hear me out, it's gonna sound insane, I realize that the more insane I sound, the more tempted you would be to shoot me, but at the same time what I'm gonna say is inevitably gonna sound insane. Like, there's a lot of angles to that whole thing, and I think with that confrontation and also just Dina's acting in this whole encounter, and especially through the night when Ellie wakes up in the middle of the night, when Dina has her flashlight on her and it's directed and edited in a way that we can't even see Dina's face, and when she turns off the flashlight and we see her face, we can see that she is devastated and she's probably been crying all night with all kinds of emotions going through her. And damn, I just realized this is what I needed from Abby. I just realized that now. Everything that we saw from Dina in this instance, rush of emotions and the thoughts and all of the emotions and the things that Dina was expressing in this scene, that was what I needed from Abby. And I'm like, of course they're going through drastically different situations, but it's just, wow, that's so interesting. Of course, as you guys heard, one of my main issues with Abby's confrontation with Joel was that I felt like she was barely showing any emotions whatsoever, when I feel like in reality she would be having all kinds of emotions flowing through her in terms of stress, confusion, despair, sadness, and anger, and apathy, and everything. And that's what I felt with Dina in this episode. Oh man, that's interesting. But yeah, this the scene with that is by far the best I've had this season, both in terms of acting, writing, directing, editing, and yeah, it was all great.
It was really, really good. I was very, very impressed by it. Which then leads into them having intercourse, and I do think it's better than the game, and I do think it was quite smart of them to leave that out, have that moment happen here instead, because of course it would make sense after you've had such a near-death experience and a very traumatic experience. You have all kinds of adrenaline and emotion going through you when you're with someone that you're best friends with, and it's shown that Ellie is attracted to Dina, and that Dina is, you know, a bit of a free soul, I guess. So I think it makes more sense that with all those kind of emotions going through you, that you would end up in that situation in this instance. I'm just not sure I'm buying the romantic connection in between these two. Like, I get them as friends, absolutely, no doubt in my mind that they really strike me as close friends. I'm just not seeing the romantic angle on it over here. But, you know, it's a press situation, and then you do ultimately get very close, so I can believe that. It's more what comes the morning after that I'm very, very confused and weirded out by. So we of course get the reveal that Dina is pregnant. When it is that she reveals that, then it's talked very casually as if they're gonna raise the kid together. There's barely even in a discussion. They talk about it as if it's just obvious that they're gonna raise the kid together and Ellie's gonna be a mom now. Like, of course I get that, like, the idea of abortions and everything like that isn't really possible over here, and of course there's also the aspect that the world needs to be repopulated, so I get the idea that, like, if you do get pregnant, then you are gonna become a parent. You know, so I get that Dina's just like, well, yeah, you're gonna be a parent. Like, I don't know, what is that Ellie is in this game? It's like 17, 18, 19, around over there. And no doubt in her mind, she's just gonna settle down and be a parent with Dina. I just feel like that is so out of the blue. I feel like there's nothing that has built up to that before. It feels so out of nowhere that this thing comes in.
That they're just deciding that they're gonna raise this kid together. Together with Jesse then, apparently. I don't know.
It's a very strange moment that they have over there. And it also feels very forced, the idea that Dina was closeted because of her parents or whatever. I don't know, in general it's just like those kind of thematics and questions coming up over here feels quite out of place. And of course I'm not talking about gay characters, it's more like gay themes, if you get what I mean. Now I know what you're thinking.
Oh, but Jonas, in the first season we had a whole episode dedicated to the gay relationship in between Bill and Frank.
Which is true, but that story was about something completely different though. That episode is one of the strongest from the first season. It's a fantastic episode. And I mean, that's for a bunch of different reasons, because that's of course an episode that managed to portray and depict what felt like an entire lifetime of two people growing attached to one another. And in the beginning, Bill was living as a prepper and a hermit, not really talking or interacting with anyone else. He was just living by himself. And then as soon as Frank got introduced to his life, then all of a sudden his motivation in his life just changed a lot for the better. The strength of that episode was how it supported the main storyline that was happening. That was the parallel theme to Joel and Ellie's story, that Joel and Bill were quite similar, that they were very closed off from the rest of the world, and the idea that you just have to think about yourself and survival for your own sake. But then what Bill then found out with Frank is that surviving alone is futile, then you're not really living. And that's what it was that he learned when he lived together with Frank. So that whole story and the thematics of it was something that heavily supported the main theme and the main story in the first season. So that's the thing, the fact that it was about two gay men doesn't really have anything to do with the story. It was about the thematics and the relationship in between these two characters. So when it is that they throw in the gay themes in this episode, it just feels, I don't know, out of place in a weird way. But the thing is, another thing in this episode that's quite interesting to me is kind of seeing the tug of war between Neil Druckmann's writing of The Last of Us Part 2 game, and then in season 2 there's clearly a team of people who have worked with storytelling and TV before that includes elements of actual storytelling. I know this sounds fluffy, but it's like the idea of we getting a scene with Tommy mourning Joel. It's like, yeah, of course, that should be in the story. Why wouldn't you have that? Well, the game didn't have that. And having the Seth character, why not give him a character and an arc to go through so you have a little side story with him? Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you have something like that? Well, second game didn't have that. And having some moments of setup with Dina being pregnant, like her throwing up at the sight of dead people when she definitely has seen dead people before, and also the moment where she froze in the pharmacy and she clearly found something interesting. Those setups for her being pregnant, like, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you have it be set up that she was pregnant? Why would you have it just come out of the blue? Well, the game didn't have any setups, there it just came out of the blue. I don't know, it's just so funny to me seeing that they're trying to follow the structure of the second game and the story of that. There's a lot of moments where it is that they just implement tiny tweaks to make it more of a story rather than just sporadically silly moments like the second game was in totality. So it's interesting seeing that whole thing. But yeah, then of course, both in the ending of episode 3 and the ending of episode 4, they're clearly setting up the WLF to be a very big military faction, and there's probably some big showdown that's gonna come in the future. How that's gonna go, I'm not sure. I don't know how these two girls are gonna be able to do anything in a situation like that. Well, given how it is that they've been characterized and being able to defend themselves, then maybe they'll just breeze through it. Oh god, I just, yeah, keep ranting about these episodes, man. My investment in this show has, yeah, escaped drastically. Now I'm mostly watching it for seeing where it goes, and then of course also being able to make videos out of it, because I do like the conversation around it, even though the episodes are not my favorites. That was episode 3 and 4. 3 was a drag, a big drag, and 4 was also a bit of a drag with quite a large highlight. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, what is it? They're only gonna do 7 episodes on season 2, so we have 3 episodes left. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the discussions that I'm having right now. My video on the first episode is performing quite well right now, so happy to see that a lot of you people liked it. Yeah, anyways, you guys have a good time. See you guys.
We don't kill people that can't defend themselves.
You mean like unconscious children?
These fries are unequivocally fucking busted.
Unequivocally fucking bad.
We can go to his skin tone and we can make him green.
Oh my god!
Now he's green! Oh, yeah, sure.
Dude, there are so many elements to the production of this that's beautiful. Oh. Ong.
Are you the Avatar, Ong?